Good morning. If someone were to call you needy in a relationship, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's not exactly a compliment, is it? If someone were to come up to you and say, "Hey man, you're so needy," especially if you're in a high school relationship, that usually spells that relationship is done. Right? You're so needy, so clingy. Usually normal examples of relationships, that's a bad thing. But not for us, Christians. Not for us. In fact, part of what marks Christians as different is that we are absolutely needy. And we see this spectacularly in all of the readings today, and especially in the fourth Sunday of Lent. If you notice visually, the colors have shifted from purple, which we normally use as part of the color of this holy season. But for the fourth Sunday of Lent, all of a sudden it shifts to rose. Today is Laetare Sunday, meaning joy. Why would he say that? Because during Lent, we're supposed to be miserable. Our fasting, our praying, our almsgiving, in a sense, is supposed to make us a little bit sad. And then the shift all of a sudden of this theme, because we need something more. And so the shift saying, no, rejoice, because something is about to unfold before our very eyes. We're about to wind down Lent, and the holy season of Easter will be quickly upon us. And the heart of all of the readings today, and it's on the bulletin cover as well, is now the attention will shift towards the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. The cover of the bulletin is a picture of Orthodox Jews at the base of what's remaining of that Holy Temple, where all of our readings take place today. So remember, the only thing that's left of the Holy Temple of Jerusalem is the foundation stones. And again, the picture on the cover of the bulletin, which is the most holy site to our Jewish brethren. They go there and they pray. It's called the Wailing Wall, and they touch the stones of the remnants of that temple. Why the need of the temple? The gospel today, in this famous story of the healing of the blind man, takes place in what's called the Feast of Tabernacles. It was one of the few feasts where every Jew, if you were a practicing Jew, no matter where you lived in the Roman Empire, you had to go to Jerusalem on pilgrimage. And so this holy Feast of Tabernacles, part of the marking of this feast of celebration of this Feast of Tabernacles was that they would light these huge candles, these huge menorahs, you know, those 7 candles, those huge ones that are typical of Jewish religion. Well, they would place them in the Temple of Jerusalem and they would light them at night. And so it would last an entire week long of light. Then not only that, but they would take the water from the pool of Siloam. Pool of Siloam, remember that phrase, that's going to be key. And they would take the waters from the pool of Siloam, and they would take it and they would throw it upon the altar in that holy temple of Jerusalem. So the Feast of Tabernacles, the 2 key themes, light and water. Light and water. Does that remind you of anything? Light and water. Think back now all the way to Genesis, during the creation narrative, when God would create the world. What does God say? God formed the heavens and the earth. He made the waters. And then all of a sudden, God said, "Let there be light," as God is unfolding creation. The temple in Jerusalem signified creation. This speech of Jesus, now with that poor blind man, precisely at this Feast of Tabernacles towards the end, Jesus has taken all of those symbols and now he's bringing it to its climactic fulfillment. So now let's jump to the gospel. Jesus is going to the blind man. Does this blind man need anything? Yes. Have you ever wondered why it was always the sick, the tax collectors, and the prostitutes who always came to Jesus first? Because these people recognize they are in deep need. You know, growing up in our culture here, we live in a culture which says we don't need God. We're surrounded by it. It's in the air that we breathe. We don't need God. In fact, all you need is to take care of your bodily needs, your money, your power, your pleasure, and your honor. That's all you need in life. But let me ask, is that true? If I just satisfy every single bodily urge and I just live my life according to what the world tells me I need to be happy, is that true? They do studies again about the quality of happiness. And it shows, again, this is not just me spouting off, but when they do studies about people with religion and those without religion, the difference is striking. People without religion who say, I don't need God, they have an increased, almost triple rates of loneliness, anxiety, and fear. Again, all you have to do is pull up these social stats. These aren't studies produced by the church by any means, no. When they study people with religion and those without, increased rates of loneliness, anxiety, and sadly even taking of one's own life. It increases exponentially. Again, why? It makes complete sense. Because if I recognize that I am created in God's image and likeness, it makes complete logical sense that only in God will I find my deepest happiness. Only when I recognize that I am needy will I ever come to God. So Jesus now is with the blind man. Notice what happens next. It says that Jesus makes disgusting clay out of his spit. He takes his spit, he rubs it in the mud, and then now he puts it on the face of this blind man. Does that remind you of anything again? Do you remember anything that deals with dirt? Harken back to Genesis. This story of Jesus now taking saliva in the clay is evocative of when God in the creation takes the dirt of the earth and he forms man. And then notice what happens next. As Jesus smears the clay on his eyes, he tells him to go precisely to the pool of Siloam. The pool of Siloam, which you can still visit today in Jerusalem, we know where it is. The archaeological digs have revealed it, and you can go there. It has since run dry, but you can still go to the pool of Siloam. It was fed by a river. The river is called Gihon. It is the same river which flowed through the Garden of Eden in Genesis. Clay and the river of Eden. If you're a first century Jew, what immediately will jump to your mind as Jesus takes this blind man, smears him with clay and with the waters of the river through Eden? Jesus is recreating man. He is making us new. Once we realize this, that every single one of us now, why as Christians to be called needy is actually highest compliment. Because we all recognize that the world is not enough. No matter how much we acquire here, it's never enough. No matter how rich or how powerful we are, we're still infected by disease and by sickness and by that common enemy of ours, death. We all stand equal before this reality, and we recognize we need someone. We need something more than what the world can offer. And so Jesus now takes this poor blind man and he evokes what happens in Genesis, and he creates him anew. And then notice what happens next. When they see this blind man and everyone is shocked that he's a new creation, then all of a sudden they're arguing. Is this the same person that was begging at the pool of Siloam? And did you hear the Blaise man's response? He says, I am. Does that remind you of anything? When Moses asked God on Mount Sinai what his name was, do you remember what God said? Ehi asher ehi. I am who am. Jesus who says, I am. And now this blind man created new who responds with that same divine name, I am. And what will happen to the baptized people at Easter who will receive the grace of baptism? And all of us who have been baptized? We now share in the divine nature. We have been created new. All of the filth of our past life, no matter what we've done, as St. Paul speaks about in the second reading, Paul who says, bring everything out into the light. He's talking about all of those shameful acts which we, when we were in our darkness, used to behave. All of our past sins, all of our mistakes, all of that which we did in darkness, now has been brought out into the light of Christ, who makes us new. I am a needy man. I need Jesus. I need to pray. I need to come to Mass because I need to receive Jesus in the Holy Eucharist. And when I mess up in my life and I live in darkness, I need to go to confession. Which, by the way, this Thursday, we're going to have 10 priests here for our Lenten penance service. If you haven't been to confession in a long time, or if you have fallen in any way, come Thursday night, 6:30. Bring everything out into the light. We don't have to carry our darkness anymore. Christ has come precisely for this. Because what Jesus wants for every single one of us, He wants us to restore us back to God. That's it. But in order to take that first step, we must first recognize, that we are needy. We are needy. And so if you ever called that, that's the greatest thing. Because then we will go to Jesus like this blind man.